on February 9th. The NBA trade deadline ended, and with that, there was a huge shift across the league. The Suns and Mavs became huge potential threats. The Bucks got deeper, and the Lakers became an even bigger question mark. But since then, enough time has passed where we can take a deeper look at the landscape of the league and determine where teams really lay. We can start with the Mavs, because they are hilarious as they picked up Kyrie and are yet to win a game with a dynamic duo. Besides that, Kyrie has been able to carry the Mavs to a win without Luka, and Luka has been able to continue to be unstoppable with the Mavs as currently constructed. But still, they are undoubtedly, unless this continues, threats in the West. Obviously, the Mavs acquired Kyrie Irving on February 6th by sending Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, and a 2029 first-round pick, along with 2 second-round picks, to the Brooklyn Nets. The Mavs attained a substantial amount of firepower by getting Kyrie, who averages 27 points per game and being an elite clutch time performer. However, they lost all of their depth that they barely even had. Now, I'm not saying that the sum of the parts they traded are better than having Kyrie Irving, but you would at the very least hope to have Kyrie Irving added to the pieces that they ended up trading away, like Dorian Finney-Smith, so that the team has quality pieces with a two-headed monster leading them. Because if you pay attention, this is what the contenders have, quality pieces. The Celtics are a perfect example of this. A two-headed monster at the wing position with quality pieces backing them up. And it's funny because if you look at the new Mavs, it kind of reminds me of the Nets team that Kyrie just left with KD. Again, it was a two-headed monster, but with not a lot of depth behind them. Instead of having Ben Simmons or Nick Claxton, the Mavs have Josh Green, who is looking hopeful, but everyone else on the team, they don't really match up, in my opinion, to what the Nets used to have when they had Kyrie and KD, especially what they have now with all the pieces that they picked up, all the packages. And to be fair, this is also my problem with the Suns, but we will cover that soon. In conclusion, the Mavs look dangerous, appear to be an offseason away from making real noise. But now we go to the Nets. The other side of this deal and the Suns trade. Post-trade deadline, they look a mess, but with a huge bright side. Cam Thomas can potentially be the future or a trade piece for a desperate team. They have Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges, who look good and start a defensive culture now that they're paired with Nick Claxton and Ben Simmons. But then there goes the negative. Ben Simmons. Roster turnaround, and again, Ben Simmons. You can argue he ended the Nets season prematurely due to his inability to live up to anything. Ben Simmons is averaging 7 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game, and 6.1 assists per game at the time of this video. And on top of that, he has a declined level of defensive intensity from previous years. And it wouldn't be that bad if he wasn't on a max contract, or traded for James Harden, or expected to be a third option for the team that just needed anything that they were missing last year without him. Keep in mind, the Nets, when they traded for him, they ended up getting thrashed by the Celtics. And while they did get swept, they were close games. So you add Ben Simmons to that team that is having tight games, one of the best teams in the league, you can see how that could be a huge threat, but he didn't live up to that. How can you convince KD or Kyrie to stay when your team was disappointing with Ben Simmons and he's the center of it? He now comes off the bench and his role has been replaced by Cam Thomas, who also comes off the bench, but he's become a much bigger part of this team than Ben Simmons is. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and anyone else with the confidence to attack with the ball are also bigger bright spots for the Nets. Basically, the Nets look fine. They have a potential to have a nice defensive core for years to come. Again, you do have Nick Claxton. You do have Mikal Bridges. So that's 2 players right there who are in Defensive Player of the Year conversations. You have Cam Johnson. You have a lot of switchability now. And Ben Simmons is a good defender. Even now, he's still a really great defender. But when you look at this team, they're 1 star away from making noise. Ben Simmons has showed you now that he isn't that star. If you're lucky, you could trade him for another star that gets disgruntled. Like, they have a good team. It's just Ben Simmons that I feel holds them back. But it'd be interesting to see what they do in this year's playoff. Next on the list is the Suns, Kevin Durant's new destination. On February 9th, the Phoenix Suns acquired Kevin Durant and TJ Warren from the Brooklyn Nets in exchange for Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, for future first-round picks and a pick swap, which is 100% an upgrade for them offensively, and on paper is a killer starting 5, regardless of who you're going to have starting with KD outside of the other big 3. Obviously. But you traded all of your defense and depth to get them, which ironically, again, reminds me of the Nets. The big 3 Nets had KD, Kyrie, Harden / Ben Simmons. You now got KD again, but instead of Kyrie, you got Debo, you got CP3, which I don't want to compare directly. It's not a fair direct comparison. However, when I do look, okay, you got a big 3, but now you got Ayton instead of Nick Claxton, was a great defensive asset. Ayton is not that. but he is to upgrade offensively, at least in theory, and his potential is higher, at least in theory. You have a lot less depth than you had at the Nets. Outside of like Seth Curry, the Nets weren't that deep. But now you go to a Suns team that still isn't that deep. I don't have that much faith for them right now. Like, who's your best defender? Is it KD? But to be fair, the Suns will still be lethal and look lethal without him. So with them, they can only be better and should at the very least get to the second round. Like, look out for them for the playoffs. I know I'm not a fan of them. I can at least acknowledge they are a threat in the West. But after the Suns, we of course got the two California teams, which are in similar places in my opinion. The Lakers and then the Clippers. But first you got the Lakers. They done trade away Russell Westbrook and Thomas Bryant. And in the process, you received D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, and Mo Bamba, while keeping one of their first-round picks and freeing up cap space in the offseason. Since the trade, they look extremely hopeful and like a completely new team that could even be contenders if they weren't at the bottom of the West. So now the question is, do they have enough time? Because the roster is without a doubt talented enough, but they dug themselves so deep a hole, it's hard to get out of it. They have endless potential with this new roster. Like, you have D'Angelo Russell, who since he joined the Lakers, looks like an amazing fit. You got Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is a defensive nightmare with Anthony Davis. Malik Beasley, who's just a sniper. Even if he's missing, just keep shooting. Hey, that's spacing they never had before. You have Lonnie Walker so deep at the end of the bench that the team is almost too deep. Lonnie Walker, who's one of their best players before the trade, is not the very deep of their rotation. Just recently, there's at a win with LeBron James, with him playing under 30 minutes for under 30 points, and they still won by 20. And granted, it was a Pelicans team that was without their best player, but it is a Pelicans team who would have been a threat to the Lakers before the trade. So now begs the question, do they have enough time? And it's just a matter of getting to the playoffs. We can see clearly that the pieces fit. They were one of my sleeper picks to low-key make out the West and get to the finals. Sleeper pick. So, hey, do with that what you will. On the other hand, the Clippers. While getting nice new pieces, I don't think anything actually changes for them. Unlike the Lakers, their roster wasn't really the problem. It was just Kawhi Leonard and his health. And unfortunately, unless you move on from him or he stays healthy, nothing else matters. Eric Gordon looks fine with them. I mean, he didn't do anything crazy, but he's not pushing the needle if Kawhi isn't healthy. Same with Bones Highland. The end-all, be-all is just his health. And if we're being honest, I think it's time for the Clippers to consider trading him, moving on for him, and almost building around Paul George or pairing him with a star that's actually able to carry them, since Kawhi's been absent anyway. And I can't help but think if they had a consistent star behind Paul George, that they can beat anybody. And if I were them, I would strongly consider trading him the second someone like Damian Lillard or Luka Doncic becomes available. Because let's be honest, Portland is disappointing again. Luka, they traded for Kyrie Irving. If the Mavs disappoint when acquiring Kyrie Irving, and Kyrie Irving decides not to sign back this season, it would not be unthinkable for Luka to want out. And you can see a team with Luka and Paul George, with the team that they have, as long as they don't give up too much. It's giving up Kawhi Leonard, maybe some picks. You know, the Mavs might have to take that deal. And then you have a Luka Paul George team with hopefully a lot of pieces around it. Hopefully you still got Bones Highland. Hopefully you still got Eric Gordon. Like, when you think about it like that, this Clippers team could be nice. Because if you do get another consistent star besides Paul George, like Paul George has been doing his best LeBron James impression, just get him someone else. Get him another star. He's number 2. Maybe he can get like a 1A, 1B type thing, but a good amount of depth. And they can try to mimic what the Celtics got going on, because they're competitive. All you need is just someone to be strong beside him. And I don't think Kawhi will be that. Unfortunately. Very unfortunate. They've been extremely disappointing since they got this team together. And then the last 2 teams I really want to highlight are Philadelphia, the 76ers, and then the Kings. They haven't done anything major, but they did convince me recently that they are for real. The real deal. Joel Embiid, real deal. Harden, the real deal. Don't sleep on him. I think a lot of people are. Don't sleep on James Harden. He's the real deal. He's not averaging 35 points, but he'll light your team up. Philly, De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis. I hate that you had to trade Halliburton away. Shout out to the Pacers because they're a dope team. Hate that they had to trade Tyrese Halliburton away, but the team looks really good. The Kings I don't know what noise they're gonna make, but they look really good. I think those teams probably could go all the way with the right circumstances, but of course they aren't the head honchos of their own conferences. But at the very least, they are threats, and I think that's good for their fan bases. And if your team hasn't been named yet, they're either solidified contenders like the Bucks or Celtics, disappointing like the Warriors, which they need their own video, and they will get their own video. The Bulls along with that, because to me they're in the same category as disappointments. But you know, the Warriors could turn it around. But as of right now, they are disappointments. Or besides those teams, maybe a team that didn't come to mind due to nothing really changing with them. Like the Nuggets, nothing really changed. Like they're a good deep team. I don't need to talk about them unless you want me to. So if you would like me to cover these teams or other teams, if you'd like me to cover any of your favorite teams out there, leave a comment below what video or team you would like to see covered next. But don't forget, subscribe for more. The next video will be covering its disappointments following the trade deadline. Shout out to the Bulls. Shout out to the Pelicans with an injured Zion and whatever the hell the Warriors got going on. Don't forget to turn on notices, click the bell. I'll see y'all next time, man.